All right, welcome back to Daily Standup. This is November 25th of 2023, and my progress to report specifically on the research backend architectures is going pretty well. And one thing I want to update on is I'm actually going to create a new ticket for myself to basically continue to flesh out this prototype that I'm working on. So let's go ahead and create that. So this is going to be, I need to make sure that I'm explicit in terms of prototype, backend, pipeline, design, data pipeline design. And I want to be very clear that this is a prototype. So if I choose to not use this or shift to another thing, we're okay with that, because we just need time to, again, think through the design and how specifically we're going to do this. So largely this is going to be kind of just continuing the notes that I posted in the research ticket on yesterday's stand-up, and this is just going to allow myself to have that explicit time to go to prototyping. So what, why, and done when. So my what, again, is create functional proof of concept for data pipeline and backend. And I want to caveat this with, I might call it a data mesh. There's two schools of thought here. Data pipeline is just strictly a linear pipeline. Mine may end up being more of the data mesh, just because there might be some continuing, there might be some logic that might determine which node in the pipeline you might go to, if that makes sense. But I'm not there yet to know. So I'm just going to put that as a sub point, and I'll put notes after I make this. So this is all really for the what: create functional proof of concept for data pipeline on the back end. I think it's important to not be super prescriptive in terms of prototyping, because that's what a prototype should be. If you go into it super prescriptive, then it sounds like you already know the solution. So, you don't want to limit somebody, or you don't want to dig them into a corner with trying to over-prescribe how you want to do this, or you know what I mean? Because that's what engineering and software is. You're figuring out the problem, you're working the problem, and you might come to a solution that nobody thought of, and that's really where the power of this comes in, because the best solutions are usually the stuff that people were not searching for to begin with. Now, obviously some stuff has been, some designs and things like that have been vetted out, but that doesn't mean you can't create a really solid solution that's unique and atypical. So the why is I need a working example to debug, and that's really the only why, right? There's some details that I don't know yet, and I have to figure out. And the only way I'm going to figure that out is actually stepping through the code and doing that. So done when I am able to step through a working example in the code. And that's it. And I'm going to go ahead and estimate this, because we need to, and I'm going to put it at 3 points, at least. And I put a 3 points on there because for me, again, that's about, because it's just me. So that'll get me about a week. I think a week of time, at least a few days. And I'm not going to put it any lower than that. And I really believe that prototyping is a super, super important function of this job. And if you don't ever get time to prototype or research, I would really question, where you're working at and what the importance is, or what they value. You know what I mean? Because if they just want somebody to code to a prescribed solution, never go outside the box, I guess that's fine. But that's a certain number of jobs that do that. But if you're really trying to grow and expand what you know, and you don't want to get stuck in just this singular path, you really got to make sure you find a place that values research and prototyping. All right, so I made that in my to-do column, and that's in my research. And I just realized I never estimated a research for backend architectures, and I'm actually going to point this at a 5. Or sorry, not a 5. I want to put this at a 3 because I think we spent a bit of time on this already, and I should have about another day on this research phase before I begin prototyping. So I'm actually going to okay, hold on. I'm going to shift prototyping back into do, and I'm going to create this with a label, so I can kind of link them because I think they're linked. And again, we just have to do the labels here. So, okay, backend architecture research. I don't know if we need like I think that should be fine, right? We'll see. I was going to say we might need to develop some kind of like numbering system, but I'm just going to leave it like this for now. I think that should be good. So now you can kind of link those. Usually you establish some kind of like dependencies, or like, one story blocks another, but I don't think we can do that on this free version. So here we're at. but essentially, I mean, it's largely the same thing we just did. So I'm going to move in progress, or I'm going to move my research backend architectures probably over to done tomorrow, and then I'm going to slide the prototyping to in progress, and then finish out the prototype that I've kind of already been working on that you should see in the next programming video that's up. So then once we get the backend prototype kind of working, I think after that we're really going to need we're probably going to need another prototype story to come up with another possibility, another design, and I'm actually going to go ahead and make that now. So prototype backend data pipeline, because I think we should have a couple working options that we kind of base our decision off of, rather than just like creating the first thing I thought of and then just using that. That's not really a prototype. So, or that's not really a prototype driven design truly. So what, why, done when, and to save us some time, because it is the same thing, I'm just going to copy and paste my estimate and details onto this ticket, and we're going to save that. And I'm going to call that number 2. So that's prototype number 2 and prototype number 1. For me, that makes sense. In a team, you might want to be a little more specific with 1 and 2 and that kind of thing. But for me, I know that makes enough sense, I think. So both of those are 3. So I think we'll move prototype 1 over into progress tomorrow, and then after we're done with that in a few days, I'm going to move prototype number 2 over. And I guess to establish some kind of like hierarchy for these, or priority, I'll just drag them to the top and then just take them from the top. That should work fine. So I think that makes sense. Yeah, and I think how I'm going to just build the prototype, I think I'm just going to create a separate path in my existing code base, or comment the other path out, something like that. But basically just to allow us to have both solutions, and then whichever one I pick, I'll ultimately just leave implemented in the code and then get rid of the other one, if that makes sense. So the only thing that could come in between these is maybe some kind of architecture or design meeting, but I think that might come after. So I'm actually going to create another ticket. We need to have an architecture or design meeting. And then what's going to come out of that is we are going to need to review we're going to need to review the prototype 1 and 2 notes and code that I implemented, and just kind of make a decision off that. So our what is we need to review solutions proposed in prototype number 1 and number 2, and then make a decision about which we want to use. So the why is we need, we need an educated decision. I mean, truthfully, I don't want to just pick what I'm thinking, just kind of, knee-jerk reaction to it. So I actually want to make an educated decision, and done when we have selected the back-end design. Okay, and that's not really a points. I mean, there's nothing really to. It's going to be probably one or two meetings. We're going to put it at a 1. Estimate it at a 1 point. So I also need to put a label on that because that comes out of my research. So does that make sense? I think that should put us in a good spot for the next week. We should finish out prototype 1 and 2 in a week and a half time based off the estimate. And then I want to have a architecture meeting immediately after those so we can make a decision so that way we can continue to make progress. And that should put us in a good spot, I believe. So that's kind of really, that's a lot of the flow of typical, developer stand-ups. You have these, you kind of report your what you learned or what you did on a ticket, but then you should be finding ways or areas that, if you have to have a meeting with these people, you should probably just set up in the stand-up. That way everyone's aware of it. But then also make sure you put that time somewhere, if it's on the board or wherever. You just make sure it's tracked somewhere. And for us, we're going to put it on the board. Honestly, I think that might be it for today's stand-up, just because I'm kind of right in the middle of research and I haven't posted my new notes yet, and I really haven't gotten much farther in my research from yesterday, and I'm like continuing to work on the prototype. I'm definitely not done with my first prototype for sure. But I'm gonna report on that in a couple of days. So anyway, I think that's it for today. I'm gonna call it here, and I will see you on the next stand-up.